Well, tonight the wait is over and the celebration has begun. Tonight, all of our preparations have been made or abandoned, and we are here to settle into a mystery. The mystery of a love that has sought us and brought us to this holy birth. Tonight, the to-do list that has been following us around for weeks has been tossed aside as we gather around a manger and the good news of God's coming among us. For God has chosen to be Emmanuel, the God who is with us, the God who is made out of the same stuff we are and the same stuff that God is, and who refuses to let us go. Over the past few days, from time to time, I've been asked, as I'm sure you have been as well, so are you ready for Christmas? And my standard response has become, well, ready or not, here it comes. Because that's the way Christmas is. It doesn't wait until we feel ready. It doesn't wait until everything looks just the way that we think it should. It doesn't wait until the to-do list has been completed. Christmas comes ready or not. 2 years ago, our daughter Rachel spent Christmas in England. Well, she was volunteering for a year in a program called Young Adults in Global Mission. It's a fantastic ministry of our church body, the ELCA, and I would welcome the opportunity to speak to any young adult about it. Rachel's host that year was a pensioner named Bobby. Bobby is a lovely woman. She loves God, she prays long, beautiful prayers, and she has a warm and welcoming heart. Now, we all speak English, right? But Bobby had this Wigan accent that was so prominent that the first time I spoke with her, I had to ask Rachel for a translation. Bobby also had, she had trouble keeping track of things, everyday things. And she could often be heard wandering around the house saying something like, oh dear, I've lost me keys, or me purse, or me hearing aid. And Bobby's propensity for losing things resulted then in her often being late for things as well. And when Bobby knew that everyone was at the door waiting for her, she would call out in assurance, don't worry, I'm coming like Christmas. It's a great line, I think, and we use it from time to time. Christmas comes without a doubt, but not always just when we are ready for it. I suppose on that very first Christmas as well, people were not exactly ready for it. Luke's Christmas narrative tells us that Joseph and Mary made the 100-mile journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem while Mary was full term in her pregnancy. Google Maps says that would be a 34-hour journey on foot. When they arrived there, the whole town was clogged with travelers, none of them who was there by choice. The emperor had ordered them all to arrive and to be counted and taxed, and he could have cared less where anyone slept. And so Mary gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and she laid him in a manger, in a lowly feed box meant for animals. And I can only guess that this was not the entrance that Mary had planned for her firstborn son. And I can imagine that Joseph also felt in way over his head and regretted perhaps that he could not provide more for his new little family. And the only visitors that night to the new baby were the shepherds from the low rungs of the first century social ladder, who certainly could not have prepared for their ordinary night shift to be disturbed by angelic messengers. Did it seem improbable to them that God would arrive in such a humble and ordinary way? But the shepherds went at the angel's word, and they found the baby just as the angel had told them. I think when we picture that very first Christmas in our minds, it's right then, right after the shepherds have arrived. And the baby Jesus, he's fallen asleep in the manger, and his tired but thankful parents, they gaze on him as a deep peace fills their hearts. And the shepherds, they stumble in and they fall down on their knees, stunned that God has summoned them on this occasion. And the starlight bathes the stable, and the angels can be heard singing above, and there it is, a perfect and holy moment, but certainly a moment that no one had prepared and that only God could create. Of course, that moment could not have lasted long as I think about it. The angels finished their song, and all that could be heard pretty soon was the music from the bar at the inn. And one of the cows stepped on a chicken, and the resulting racket was so loud that it woke up the baby Jesus, and he started to cry. And as Mary leaned over to pick him up, Mary started crying too. And when Joseph tried to comfort her, she told him that she wished that her mother were here and that she wanted to be home where she belonged instead of competing with cows for a place to sleep. And she didn't say it very nicely either. But a few moments later, when her tears had stopped, she said that she was sorry. And Joseph said not to think another word about it, and he meant it too. Both of them were exhausted, maybe cold and hungry as well, and no doubt overwhelmed. But do you know what? God was still there, right in the middle of that picture too. God had come, ready or not, in the infant Jesus. And because God is with us, there is peace and joy and love and forgiveness, not only in the best of times, but also and most especially in the most difficult of times. Many years ago now, when we were living in Carrington, North Dakota, I stopped at a neighbor's house the week before Christmas. I was there to pick up our daughter who'd been playing with their daughter. They had a big, beautiful home and 2 beautiful kids. And I asked her that question that we ask, "Are you ready for Christmas?" And her answer surprised me. She said in no uncertain terms that she was not ready for Christmas, and she added with great disappointment that if she only had a couple more weeks, she could have created a Christmas that her children would have found truly memorable, but that just wasn't going to happen this year. Now, I know enough about people to know that even the family that looks the prettiest on the outside might have a struggle or a sorrow that I could not imagine for them. And still I couldn't help but feel that the perfect picture in her mind was causing her to miss the joy and the goodness of this Christmas right before her. Peter and I have now entered into that stage in life known as empty nesters. Turns out it's a somewhat fluid state, as our 20-something children figure out just who they are and where they're going next. We sometimes think about their growing up years, and we wonder and sometimes have regrets about what we could have or should have done differently. And we have come to the conclusion that if we had to do it all over again, well, we'd probably find a whole new set of ways to mess that up. But our kids seem to think that despite being well acquainted with their parents' imperfections, that their parents also gave them love and lessons and faith that they find to be things of value. And as we watch them now grow into adulthood, it's not always the plan that works out perfectly, but rather the side trips and the struggles and sometimes the pain that helps them discover what is of true value. I don't know how much or how little this Christmas resembles for you what you had hoped that it would be. I don't know if you're ready or not, or just waiting for it to be over. But I do know this: Christmas is here. Not because we are ready, not because we've created it, or because we have a perfect set of circumstances. Christmas is here because Jesus was born into this world of hurt and struggle. Christmas is here because God still loves this world, and Jesus continues to be born again and again through God's gifts of grace and peace and forgiveness and new life. Turns out God often does God's very best work in less than perfect circumstances, in a manger, among the poor and the outcast, and on a cross. These are the places where God chooses to break into our world and our lives with new life. God didn't need a perfect set of circumstances that first Christmas to be born into our world, just a manger, some swaddling clothes. And God doesn't need us to be ready or perfect this Christmas to be born into our lives. Just an openness to what God is doing and a willingness to make a place for God in our less than perfect lives. For God still loves this world, and God still comes to be with us, ready or not. Amen.